From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factory.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
And this is Conlon.
It's been a weird week. It's been a weird month. Lots of things going on, and none of them are very good. See, Detroit flooded again. I don't know how many inches of rain we got in the last 4 days, but someone said it was like 9. Wasn't quite as bad out here. Well, here we had the weird, because like the week before it was really hot. And then we had this week where it wasn't because it was raining all the time. But whenever it gets really hot for like 3 days and it doesn't rain, you will have torrential downpours. That happens every year because I guess the Great Lakes just evaporate and go up into the clouds, and then they return to the earth violently. We had rain. We thought it was hail, but it only lasts for 15 minutes and then stops, and the sun comes out again, which is real pleasant. It shoots up to 90. Like, this is nice.
So, like, does the outside get that weird matrix hue to it where, like, everything's, like, slightly green?
Yeah, everything has, it has a weird hue to it. Like you're just waiting for the trees to start pixelating. But I guess Detroit got it a lot worse. And because guys who had their basements flooded and lost all their appliances in the basement, your heater, your water heater, your washer, dryer, if you have that down there. Well, they replaced those last month, and now they got to replace them again because the city flooded.
Oh no, my porn collection.
Yeah. And there was people couldn't make it to work, which doesn't matter because half of us are laid off for a little bit anyway, so whatever. But yeah, they were just telling people to try to come into work and use Google Maps to find alternate routes. It's like, yeah, buddy, I'm going to be out in this, and everywhere I drive, there's 10 feet of standing water across the road. I don't think I'm going to make it to work unless I just put a jet ski, like just back your truck in and just get on the jet ski and just leave it there. I wonder how long that would last.
Get a snowmobile. Just don't stop.
Yeah, just skim across.
You ever seen those?
Yeah, it's crazy. They put scoop on them and stuff. They're just running full blast.
Yeah.
7,000 RPMs all the way.
It's like, how does this fucking work? It's like, oh, it works. You just can't stop.
Yeah. There's not a lot of control involved. You're just kind of going in one direction. You better hope
you can lean a bit.
Yeah. You better hope there's no sinkers or deadheads in the water, because having a tree go up your ass at 80 miles an hour is not going to be fun. I've seen those paddle tire things that go up sides of mountains or like dirt hills like that. You ever seen that? They do that in like Scandinavia a lot.
I think
it's like an incline. It's almost a straight vertical incline, but it's kind of muddy and dirt. And they put those big paddle tires on them, and they have like, these things probably produce 1,500, 2,000 horsepower. And the thing is to see if you can make it to the top of the hill, because it's just these paddles grabbing the side of the mountain. And if you don't, you fuck up. Well, these things they just fall off. They're full frame roll cage vehicles, but it's like, I would not want to be in that thing.
There was this weird vehicle that they built in, like, I don't know, like the 50s or something. And it was built, and it's fucking huge. It has gigantic tires on it. And it was built to, like, do scientific research in Antarctica.
Okay.
And then they got it there, and they did some stuff with it, and then they just abandoned it. And now it's just, like, stuck in a glacier somewhere. Like, it's buried. Yeah. It's gone. It's
in
like
10,000 years they'll dig it up and like, what were these people like?
And it's like one of the largest like land vehicles ever built. It's like it's fucking crazy.
Oh, it looks like a train going down a road, right? It's like it's really long.
I can't remember. I don't
Doesn't
think
it
it.
have like articulated sections.
Maybe.
One giant thing. I don't know.
I think it's just one giant thing. I can't remember. It's one of those like YouTube recommendations when you like looking at like weird vehicles. It's like, have you seen this weird vehicle? It's like, no, I haven't. And it seemed almost sad that it was just like abandoned. It was just like all this like effort went into build it in the first place, and now it's just probably destroyed. I doubt it's intact. I think it's like just like stuck in a glacier that then ripped apart and then like tore the thing apart. Or something like that.
Antarctic Snow Cruiser, designed from 37 to 39. Yeah, it's huge. It's got the big balloon tires.
Yeah.
It's also called Penguin 1 or Turtle. Yeah, they used it from like in the 40. Well, World War II kind of interfered with all that. And then they had to abandon it in 1958. Because the tires went flat.
Oh, okay.
They abandoned it, but they left a flag on top of it, and they were going to recover it, and they just never did.
Yeah.
I think the Soviets might have stolen it.
You got drunk one night. Popped up underneath a glacier with a sub and stole it. Ran it into the water.
Of course, the Russians had a massive one, too. Can't think of what... I can't even pronounce this word. It means woman of Kharkov. It's just like a snowcat.
Yeah.
And the army had the one that was the snow train.
Oh, okay.
That was built in the 50s by Laterno. And I know that company because they make material handling equipment, or they used to. I think they got bought out by someone else. Yep, that was the one. Yeah, it just had flat tires. And it was massive, too. It was huge.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite is like, I love like Soviet era graveyard technology. And still my favorite was the Chronoplan,
Yeah.
the ground effect plane, which I didn't realize there was a guy who was making other planes that could do the ground effect, but could also fly like regular planes. And it was supposed to deploy pontoons if it had to do water landing, or it could just retract its gear or put its gear down and do regular landing. But what they found out is they could not make engines powerful enough because it looked like 3 hulls. It looked like 2, like imagine, I can't remember what this thing was called, but imagine like 2.
Is that the wig?
It's not as big as an Chronoplan, because it was also made for vertical takeoff and landing too.
Oh, okay.
But it looked like 3 hulls of a plane.
Yeah. Well,
Like
and I'm trying to think, because there's one in Metal Gear Solid 3 that they use, like, what the fuck is that plane? And it's something called a wig. And it's like, it's a plane not really meant to like go high in the sky. It's meant to just be low on the ground, but it's fucking massive. And usually in Metal Gear Solid, like, the stuff they show is, if it's not the actual Metal Gear, it's a real thing. But I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the video. It's called the VVA-14.
Okay.
And it's a really weird looking plane. It basically looks like 3 hulls in one, because there were 2 giant hulls just to handle these massive engines they were putting on it. And it kind of looks like a Machine and Krieger thing. Like, you could just make a model out of this and say Machine and Krieger, and it's like, yeah, it sure looks like one. It never really worked like they wanted it to. Because they couldn't make... Well, the only reason it didn't is they couldn't make engines big enough.
Yeah.
If they tried to make that now, they could waste a lot of money and gas, and it would probably do everything as advertised, but it'd have an operational range of 100 miles. Because it was just this huge... The heaviest...
Or to get the weight down, it had to be built as so exotic material that the cost would be like astronomical.
It costs as much as a nuclear submarine. Not even a good one. Sorry about that, everyone. But yeah, that's that kind of technology always fascinates me. That because the Chronoplan was cool.
Yeah.
but it was just like a big target. It was something conceived in that kind of age of wonder in the 50s and 60s, and then you realize, oh, they have homing missiles now. It's like this thing can't really maneuver sharply, or it's be very hard to hit. But
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean it's below radar, but it's not under the sea, and it's too fast for ships to catch. But you'd have to know where it was to take it out. But
the heat signature it gave off was massive, because we were worried about them. We thought, oh, they're going to assault like Great Britain or something with these giant Echronoplan landers, but then they're like, oh, these things put off a massive amount of heat, like it's because there were like 15 engines on them. It was huge. They also used a lot of fuel, and they weighed a ton. You see, the Russians, like the Soviets, they did a lot of like prototypes in steel. It's before we get to the type, because they would sell the rare earth elements for currency.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's make this out of steel. Like the guys, when I used to know all the airline mechanics, they were telling me about when some of the Russian planes, when there was a kind of a initial thawing after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the Aeroflot planes would land at Metro. They called them the 747 skis because that's basically what they were. But you looked at them, you realized, oh, those are steel spar wing struts and shit. Those aren't aluminum. Like these engines on these things are insane. Like because the 747 would roll out; those are really loud. But then the Russian Aeroflots would roll out, and whoa! And the wings are shaking and shit. It's like, why do they have that big a fucking engine? It's like, oh, they got a bunch of steel in that. It's like, oh my god. Yeah, they said the Russian planes were something else. Because guys who work on planes just looking at them and shit's like, oh, that's all steel. What the hell? That adds like that's like 10,000 pounds. But that's why they had these huge, and they also couldn't. These were clones of 747s, but they always had to stop, and refuel all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like the range on these things sucks. It's like because the flight of Metro from like there, it was like you stop once after Moscow, and then you catch that Arctic leg, and then immediately landing priority at LaGuardia or JFK to refuel, then go to Metro, which is not that far by plane from New York, and then got to refuel again. Like, what? Jesus. What are they? Do they have like 800 people on the plane? But that stopped very quickly once FAA was kind of looking at things like, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. Somehow I don't think these things are maintained that well. We don't want them
One of these fall out of the sky. It's like an artillery barrage. Hits the ground.
It's like, was it scattered all over a field? No, it was in one piece pretty much. It was weird as shit. Made a hole the size of a football field, but
And the inside was a margarita of people, but
it was a regular salsa tube. So nobody lived, but the plane could be put back into service relatively quickly, which sounds like something from the Soviet era.
yep.
Speaking of Soviet era, I'm working on a new model from the Soviet era. This is, I don't know how clearly you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes, this is an artillery piece called the Soviet 2A3 Condensator, 406 millimeter self-propelled howitzer. This was designed to compete with Atomic Annie.
Oh, okay.
Remember we had those, we made like 2 of those wacky nuclear artillery cannons, and the Russians were scared to death. They thought we were going to make like 5,000 of them and send them to Europe. We figured out this is a really expensive way to shoot off and a very easy to find way to shoot off a nuclear weapon. So this was the Soviets made this, but they based it on a tank chassis they had. So when they would fire this giant, they never actually fired a nuclear shell, but they fired giant dummies that simulated the weight and stuff. And this thing would roll back about 15, 20 feet every time they fired it, which made target reacquisition and re-aiming hard. It also fucked it up when it broke the tracks and transmission every time you fired it. So at every step, they did work all these problems out. And at the end of the day, it did roll down the street in a Mayday parade. But then Khrushchev was like, how much does it cost to build missiles? Oh, this much. Had this many rubles. And how much does it cost to build these things? Oh, a lot more rubles. And it's like, how far can it shoot? It's like, well, we can shell West Germany with nuclear artillery. He's like, yeah, and I can fire 100 missiles for like the same cost. So this got tabled, but they did build 4 working models. So. Yeah, I love the weird names because condensator means capacitor in both German and Russian.
Huh.
So this was like the ultimate capacity howitzer, and 406 millimeters is a huge howitzer because the Atomic Annie we had was only 250 millimeters, so it was like twice the size. Because Russia, everything's bigger is better. It's all its weird phallic thing with them. It's like we must build biggest missiles. Why exactly? So yeah, I'm putting this thing together because it's just more of that ridiculous Soviet tech I love. It's like, yeah, let's do this. Can't feed everyone, but we can do this. We have the most educated people in the world who will slit your throat for a potato.
That's progress.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the Russians, they're really good at educating people. They're really bad at running a country, though. It's just like they need to outsource that part of it. I mean, they could be the kings of the world if they have more nuclear scientists per square inch than anywhere on the planet. And they do, like I said, metals and material stuff way better than anyone else in the world. But you have to get them out of Russia for them to do that. Because, it was bad in the Ukraine when they were putting like the warheads outside of the bunkers because the potatoes and bread, they could lock in the bunkers, but no one's going to steal the warheads because you can't eat a warhead. That was in the 90s too. It's like why are all these warheads laying around in the row? We put tarp on them, it'd be fine. It's like, wait a minute, this is mustard gas. Yes, but potatoes and cabbage, no, that's what people will steal, and I have the key, so I can have any woman I want from the village. This guy was like a general. Like, Jesus. It never changes with you guys.
We are all equal.
Yeah. Communism makes us equal.
The potato farmer and the general, we're all the same.
Well, that's like, yeah, literally. I mean, we build like bunkers to put this shit in. So did the Russians. The Soviets did. But when times get tough, it's like, get all the weapons out of the bunker. Can you imagine that here where we're locking potatoes? And I mean, it might come to that someday. But I still like the mentality of like just mustard gas canisters that literally were as thin walled as a coffee can. Just pile that up, and don't pile it up carefully. Get a fucking bulldozer and just start shoving that shit over there so we can get potatoes in here. Wow. That was like Clinton sent people over there because we were going to help them disarm and get rid of kids. Like, can you destroy like nerve gas and oh yeah, we have equipment to do that. We got rid of a lot of our stores of that. How much you need us to get rid of? We were thinking, well, we'll just bring a small piece of equipment over there. Oh, is it 3 billion gallons? Like, what? You have 3 billion gallons of nerve gas? Oh yeah. Yeah,
we're thinking about killing the world
twice. It's like you don't even have a way to deliver 3 billion gallons of nerve gas. What
if we found another alien planet? We could kill them too.
Yeah, we could go through. We made a time machine where we can kill them. Well, a lot of the reasons, and this all comes from The Dead Hand. Great book. Everyone watching should read it sometime. One of the reasons the Russians had so much like anthrax and nerve gas and shit is we figured out a way to store that stuff where it would last for decades. The Russians couldn't. They knew how to do it, but you got to remember, they were pretty much shut off from the world's market on a lot of things. So they couldn't get the chemicals and stuff in there to preserve it. So they just kind of had to like, well, we'll just make up for it in quantity. It's like, yeah, the sarin gas is only good for 10 years. But if we have 10 times the amount, we're covered, And it's no thought given to like, even if this stuff deactivates, it's still a horribly dangerous chemical. You can't dump it in a river. It'll kill everyone down the river. If it doesn't do that, it'll kill everything in the river, which will make your river turn into a giant sewer. Because the Russians knocked these ideas around. We had to build facilities there for them. Like when at the anthrax plant, they were like, how much anthrax do you need us to get rid of? we knew we had a certain amount in storage, so we figured, well, they might have a little more. Oh no, we need to build a factory next to the factory to dispose. It was some ridiculous, like 4 million tons of, or 4 million pounds of anthrax or something. It was like, oh my God, where do they store it? Because all our scientists were like, Jesus, you'd never make that much. Not the Russians, though.
Nah, once you got a production going, you don't stop it.
Well, another thing there too is that, you know, when you have those wonderful, you know, communist planned economies, which they did, it was like you get bonuses for meeting quota. Now that works out great for like tractors and cars and stuff, because there's a big demand for this. The public needs it. You know, if you're making, you know, big bonuses at the potato chip factory or whatever the fuck they ate, it's like great. But they put those same things on like nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons. It's like, we have exceeded quota. Everyone gets a bonus. Yay! It's like you're making VX, and you've made enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool with it. And don't have a way to store it properly, obviously. Yeah.
Well, use the Olympic-sized pool.
Store it in the pool. Yeah, some of that stuff and they denied that. They denied that till the day before the inspectors. It's not that. It's not that. We can work on this. And Bill Clinton, I mean, it was like billions of dollars. They came to Clinton as like the people he sent over there, the scientists and stuff, like they were white faced and pale. And it's like, did you get exposed to something? It's like, maybe, I don't know, but Jesus Christ. And they told him what was going on. And he's like, how do we get out of this? He goes, money, lots of money. It's like, I'm not giving the money to them. It's like, no, we're just going to build the shit over there. And
he's like, is it bad? And the guy's like, I don't know if horrifying's a strong enough word.
How does the end of the world sound? And everything was like that over there, because they had a facility that was, you know, like when, you know how we have crop dusters and stuff. And yeah, well, our Department of Agriculture and the EPA, like, we have facilities where we test the chemicals, we test how it sprays, how it disperses, how far it goes. The Russians had those same facilities, and they said, yeah, this is for, you know, testing like, you know, pesticides sprayed from the air and stuff. And the guy who was an expert on it is like, why are you using this in explosion-proof rooms? Like, why are you testing like how powder falls and stuff in explosion-proof room? These are very thick rooms. And the guy kind of hem-hawed around. It's like, well, the military built it. It's how they build it. It works the same. And this guy was looking at the walls, and he could see like where parts of metal were embedded in the walls. And it's like, this facility is not for testing agricultural dispersants. This is how you test clustering munitions and nerve agent delivery systems. Oh, no, we would never do that. And the reason they did that, though, the deception there was like, we have dedicated facilities that we sign treaties that say, this is where we test this is where we test that. That's what all these treaties are supposed to do. Well, the Russians have those facilities that they claim, and then every other fucking facility they can make up to have them double the capacity to develop and modify stuff like that. That's why it's like, this is why you put your terrorist headquarters in a children's hospital. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, when did you start using cratering munitions to deliver pesticide? What kind of crazy crops are you growing where you just blow them into the air?
We wanted to disperse faster.
Yeah. Yeah, the potatoes, they go right into the old woman's home. Straight right into the old woman's pot.
From the farm to the home in one explosion.
The giant jet bomber dropping cluster bombs in the cabbage patch. Everyone's holding their pots up. Here they come. Just all murdered with shrapnel. Oh, we didn't think about that part.
Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Farming?
Yeah, this is it's a co-development.
This is why FPS Russia doesn't have a YouTube channel anymore.
Yeah. I like the video when he was shooting at Tannerite. Remember giant piece of metal that's
Yeah, just narrowly missed him.
just like came like he could hear it whistle by his head. Is like, oh, this was so much of the actual last FPS Russia video where this guy's like decapitated by a piece of metal flying 500 miles an hour. Because anything's a weapon at those speeds. You ever see the thing where they froze the baseball and were firing it at the rubber dummy?
No.
Yeah, if you fired the baseball at the rubber dummy at 100 miles an hour, it would like, it was a big rubber dummy. It would knock it back. If you froze it and fired it at 500 miles an hour, it went straight through the dummy like it wasn't there. And they were shooting this out of an air cannon, mind you. This wasn't like explosively driven. This is air cannon.
Yeah.
And then they did the same thing with catcher's mitts, but they had 10 of them in a row, and they fired it, and it ripped through all but the last one. Like, this is what a baseball does at 1,000 miles an hour. This is how much energy it takes to make a baseball go 1,000. It was one of those physics type things.
Yeah.
But it's like watching that dummy like super expand and then contract suddenly once because it was in slow motion. It's like, oh, that's weird. But yeah, anything's deadly at those speeds. I like the thing about the BB in space. You ever heard that guy talk?
No.
About how much mass a BB has at 10,000 miles an hour. It would, like, if it hit the space shuttle, it would just blow it to vapor. Like, it's just crazy. They're talking about traveling to Mars, and it's like there's all kinds of tiny things like that. Now, they're not all moving 10,000 miles an hour.
No.
But they don't have to be really
No.
destructive.
Well, I mean, the thing about space is there's more space than stuff, so that stuff is unlikely. But yeah, there's still. Well, yeah, it's like you never really get the sci-fi talking about it, but it's like if you have these two warring factions firing projectiles at each other, like somewhere off in the distance, anything that missed or even anything that hit is still flying around.
Same speed.
Yeah.
That's like in The Expanse when they're just unloading with, I don't know what they're called, but basically they're Sea Whiz guns. They're equivalent Space Sea Whiz. It's like, where's that shit going to hit? It's going to hit Mars, it's going to hit Earth, it's going to hit Delta colonies, or maybe they know and they stage the battles. I'm not sure. But I always wondered about that. It's like these guys are just flinging material into space, especially like those Gauss cannons or those whatever, the light rail guns.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where's that going if you miss? Whose day is that going to fuck up? Yeah, that's why I always liked the Alistair Reynolds, the light huggers, because they didn't like. What does it look like? It's just a block of ice moving through space. It's like, what's all the ice for? Collision. Water doesn't compress, so if you just put frozen water on the front of your ship, and they were going like 1 mile under the speed of light or something. That's why they're called light huggers. Because if you go past the speed of light, aliens come and kill you in that universe or something. Or actually, it's vulgar to talk about exceeding light speed. If you mention it to some aliens, they die because it's so stupid. But anyway, yeah, that's like why the ships are covered in kilometer thick sheets of ice. It's like, yeah, because they can travel that fast, but they're in real space. Like they're not in subspace or something. That's why the light huggers turn around halfway through the voyage. Well, the engines turn around halfway through the voyage. And it still takes them hundreds of years to get anywhere. So. But I thought that was cool. It's like, yeah, what does it look like? Just an ice cube with engines on the side of it.
And they kind of did that in Seven Eves.
Oh, yeah.
Where they get the comment. It's like, we're going to need water. And the Elon Musk of the book goes and gets a comet.
Yeah, it comes back dead. Here's your water. Like he's almost dead because from radiation or something.
No, he's already dead when they get there. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's like a radiation leak and everybody died. But they got the water.
It's all that matters. Humanity continues. No matter what. Did you see the last Loki yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of a pleasantly surprising series. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah,
It dragged in the middle.
well, I mean, it's only 6 episodes, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like if you watch them all at once, it's probably. But I think I guess I was kind of bummed when Disney pulled shop on all of Netflix's Marvel shows, but I think
Yeah.
they've clearly proven that their Marvel shows are far superior.
Yeah. Love Disney or hate them, they are good at entertainment. And with the Marvel stuff, I mean, there was some stuff in like, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
There was some stuff in that. It's like, oh, is this going to become a Marxist struggle session? And then it kind of pulls right out of it. It's like, okay, yeah. All right, that's fine. But this TV series didn't seem to have any of that. Like, we're going to stop and teach you a lesson. It's like, no, it just
Yeah.
kept going.
Well, even WandaVision was just like crazy nonsense, but it was like unique for the Marvel stuff, and so was this show. It was like very unique when compared to the movies. Like, this is its own thing.
Yeah. Well, and they made like kind of a side character bad guy, the bad guy you always knew who was going to lose, and then they made that part of this show. Like when he meets the massive multiverse of himself, it's like, yes, we're going to lose. I like the old guy, the old Loki.
Yeah.
It's like we always plan to fail. It's our destiny. We're Loki's, and he's kind of looking around like, shit. This one gal might be able to break the chain. But then they give him a universe now in a world. It's like way bigger than the Marvel universe, because now you're dealing with this huge overarching thing. The true multiverse war, the real Infinity War, which I think is the direction they're going. Isn't this going to just run into movies and stuff where these?
Yeah, because the next Thor movie, which is I think it's Thor like Love and Thunder or something. There's a lot of like gender swap stuff where it's like, I think Natalie Portman will be Thor. So we're gonna have like a lot of like this multiverse stuff, which is, I don't know, like it always sounds interesting, but multiverse stuff always sounds interesting, and there's always a reason why they have to kill all that shit off, because it's too.
Well, it gets to be Doctor Who after a while.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, this is a mess. This is a huge mess.
But then you get to have the war where it's like, we gotta kill off the multiverse. It's like, yeah! And then you get to reboot all your franchises.
Yep. The franchise eternal. But yeah, I thought it was a cool show. It was well done all the way through.
Yeah, I like that.
Owen Wilson, like the quirky, optimistic, like,
Yeah.
hey, what are you doing?
And also like how, he's the quirky guy, and he seems like he's like helping Loki, but he's also manipulating Loki, which is like fun.
Yeah,
It's like, here's this guy that seems like, like a dullard or just kind of a simpleton, especially
Or
compared to
just naive.
Loki.
yeah.
But like, no, but he is also like manipulating people. He's manipulating Loki, who's supposed to manipulate people.
yeah,
And the idea that like, Loki's so narcissistic that the only person you can fall in love with is another version of himself.
yeah. Yeah, and she's the only like successful Loki so far. He's the one who saw it through. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, because he's still a bad guy. He's never going to be a good guy. I don't think there's ever going to be a redemption arc for him. As a matter of fact, I think Tom Hiddleston said he wouldn't do it if there was. It's like, because he's married to that character now. He's been Loki for what, 12 years? It's been a long time.
Yeah, I think 2008 was the first Thor movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so that was a very satisfying series. I mean, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was good too. WandaVision I'm going to start tomorrow, just because I've been all over the place this week. But yeah, I thought that was like, this is worth the $1.99 price hike you threw on me. As soon as you announced Loki was coming out, it's like, it went up $1.99. Oh yeah. Oh, can I see Black Widow?
Yes. Yeah, $30. I could, that's what they want to do. It's like, hey, spend $30 here, or go to the movie theaters and see it for cheaper. And it's like, guess I'm watching. Well, actually, I guess I'm not watching it.
Yeah. Now I can't watch the Red Letter Media because I've got to wait.
Yeah. Oh man, I've missed the last 3 months of all their stuff just because I think I didn't want to watch one because I meant to watch the movie like a Promising Young Woman. I haven't seen any of their stuff since then because I've been waiting to watch a Promising Young Woman. I still haven't watched it. So it's one of these days it's going to be an all-day marathon of Red Letter Media.
I thought that I was going to try to do it with Grayson, but he's got so much. He's doing advanced. He took an accelerated advanced biology summer course. So him and my wife right now, I can hear them are making flashcards. Like she understands all that stuff.
Yeah.
She just writes out flashcards for him. Like this is what, because when it comes to biology, she actually is like, oh yeah, I remember all this stuff. It's like, well, you should. You're a nurse. I mean, I hope you know a little bit about it. If I knew all about it, it would be weird.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Oh shit. Shouldn't you know this? The body's weird.
Body's a changing organism. Sometimes knowledge doesn't keep up, but yeah, I can hear him right now. So there's like no time, and he's still working, but not very much. And but yeah, lesson. Here's an advice, kids: don't take an advanced biology accelerated summer course. Literally did homework for like 8 hours one night. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's like here's a course that's meant for a 5-month semester crammed into 3 months. So yeah. I know that stuff.
He's also taking a history course. I was like, "How's that going?" He goes, 99%. Okay, cool. He's learning stuff about that. They're studying medieval Japan. He's like, "I wish I could spend more time on this. I know how to read it quick and get the question answers, but." I was like, "Oh yeah, there's a book I can give you if you want to know more about that." But so yeah, he just didn't have time, and you can only buy so many seats here because the theaters are still limited capacity.
Yeah.
So you can't just fill a theater here yet. It's one of the few things that's left. But you don't have to wear masks. It's like, well, could you put more people in if we wore masks so we can see the movie? I mean, I don't, whatever. It's air conditioned theater. It's not going to be like work where it's like, it's 115 degrees in here. I put that mask on. Oh, this is great. I don't have to do that anymore. When I go back to work Monday, they say no more masks. And I'm going to take advantage of that because I never come closer than 20 feet to anyone, and I don't want to wear a mask when it's 89 degrees outside.
I guess I did I got an extra mask because, I don't know, things started to get weird again, and I just, maybe I'll pick up a new one. Because I had the RZ mask that's really meant for like, hey, are you doing some woodwork with a belt sander? Put this on. But like the stuff with the hole in it's not actually like, because things get out, it's not supposed to be for that. So I got this one from, what the hell is this thing? Yeah, I got a new mask. Haven't even wore it yet. I just took it out, but it's got like a little. Yeah, it's got
filter pockets in it. Okay.
Yeah, filter pockets. It like has this little pop-up part here where it goes above your nose, and so it's just a nice one. It's some place, some boutique place in Los Angeles makes it. It's like Lima Griff or something like that. I can't remember.
Silk mask.
And I got and they make a neat, like, grocery bag, cotton grocery bag, where it's just like, it folds into itself so it looks like a rolled up pair of socks. And then you like take it out of the pocket. It's just a big net. It's just a big net, and you just put groceries in it, and then you just fold it back in. But when you take it out, of the thing it folds in. It's like a big net thing, and then it also has a little pocket that you put it in. So you got two things you can carry.
Well, see, we bought like grocery bags that we just would put in Stacy's car.
Yeah.
So every time we went grocery shopping, we would use those bags. And we bought them from the store. They're like $2 a piece. So they're nice bags. They're cloth bags, so I don't have to use those plastic things. So I guess like when the sun dies and the moon turns to dust, those will still be present. Plastic bags for some reason. I always tell Stacy, just plant them in the ground and beautiful flowers will grow. But she doesn't like my like denial of reality defense. So, and then when coronavirus came along, I can't use those anymore. And so then we went and we were doing some groceries, and I was like, oh, I got bags. That's all. We're not supposed to use those yet. I was like, really? Okay, fine. It's like, I don't, because I don't give a shit one way or another. I don't like the plastic bags because you should never use something once and throw it away. It should always be repurposed into something, I think.
Yeah.
But really, I like the big bags so I can get all my groceries inside in one trip.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
those big hand, I can just like load them up and carry them in, and they're still like doing that shit. It's like, what are you guys worried about? The Epsilon variant? Like, what are we doing? Who's making this call? The plastic bag manufacturer? Was that your health and safety officer too?
But anyways, wait, you're gonna rent out a theater to go watch Black Widow?
Yeah, I was gonna try to get a ticket for me and my son, but yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't pan out. I'm not gonna pay $30 to watch something at home
Yeah.
because I like the theater. Well, I like the theater experience minus people. Like if there was a movie I really wanted to watch and it's like $300, can you buy every seat in this theater? It's like, okay, just sitting there myself and bring out the food that I smuggled in like a wizard. Because we put them in Ziploc bags because they don't crinkle. You can eat all the peanuts you want out of it.
Yeah, I've been meaning to go see Fast and Furious and then maybe Black Widow, but every time it becomes my first day off. It's like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. And then like 3 days later, it's like, I guess I gotta go back to work. I didn't go anywhere and I didn't do anything.
Yeah, I kept it pretty low key. I went a few places. Went down to the model store a lot because I was working on something and I would run out of one thing of paint, so I'd get another thing of paint, and then I'd be like, oh, I need this glue, and I'd go get the glue, and then this new model came in. I was like, oh, down there 3 days in a row. Sometimes though, the conversations we have down there, it's like I should really look to the left and to the right. Because we don't know, you don't know if anyone's in the front of the store because the shelves are like a line, so you can't really see. And talking about the apocalypse and how the world's going to end, and everyone had their suicide plans worked out, and we were all, in case the world ends, this is what we're going to do. But imagine if someone didn't know the context about that, and they just walked in, and I'm like, no, saw the barrel off, right under the it'll vaporize you from the head up. It's like, well, you can use insulin to kill yourself too. It's just, you get kind of confused, and then you go into a coma and die. If someone just walked in blind, and all three of us are talking about it, it's like, oh my God, what are these people doing? These people are all desperately sad lunatics. It's like, no, this is a what if. This isn't like we're doing this tomorrow. It's all a what if thing. So yeah.
Only vaguely similar. I saw a video of it was a woman in her engineering class, and I guess she's the only woman there, and like all these like engineer guys are basically like using the engineer skills to like develop a rape joke, and it was like, oh, this is horrifying.
What? Really? Was she in on it?
No.
Or were they just looking at her like,
no, all you can see, it's just her. She's just taking a picture or a video of herself, and you can just hear them in the background.
Jeez.
And it's like, oh, this is terrifying.
what the hell's wrong with it? Is time. It's just like that. Who has the interest? It's like, this is all, oh, there's a woman in the room I must constantly talk about.
Well, it seemed like they were ignoring her, but like it's like, oh, this is what people talk about when there's no women around. It's like, oh, we forgot there's a woman here and she's recording. Uh-oh.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Now boys will be boys. Like, that doesn't include rape.
People are just psychos. I mean, when I talk to women, I talk to other women other than my wife. I talk about things like Chernobyl or the model I'm building, and they always go like, that's cool, and they just wander away. And so it's like, well, no one feels threatened by me, obviously. No one's interested. Because if someone was like, oh, I'm really into Chernobyl, makes me hot, I'd be like, oh, shit, I'm into
Don't talk about Chernobyl.
Talk about Chernobyl.
I'm going to talk about football.
Dick jokes. Yeah, so that's not surprising.
I don't know. It was a TikTok, so it could all been prefabricated. It's like,
Probably wasn't though.
yeah, because there's always those things where it's like, is this like some weird double propaganda that's really anti-propaganda, but it's like posing as propaganda.
The old switcheroo.
Like, did you ever see that one where it's like, it's a picture of Donald Trump, like holding a little girl, and she's like terrified of him, and then like the caption is like something like, "This is what children fear Biden" or something like that, and it's like, use Donald Trump as the example.
I've seen that thing with the caption where the lady's holding the little girl up, and she's like, "God of rage, take my baby as a sacrifice." Yeah, I don't know. You never know what's really going on.
It's like, is somebody that stupid, or is this somebody trying to make people look stupid, or is it? It's like, I guess I should just not believe anything.
Yeah, it's best not to believe anything unless you were actually in the room when it was going on, and even then, they could have conspired in advance because really they're trying to fool you.
Yeah, gaslighting. Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll hear people say stuff that like, "Oh, okay, now this kind of thinking still goes on." Like when the one pretty girl from another shift was using one of our forklifts, and then she was working like a shift and a half, so she had to go home. It's like, "Hey, does anyone know which one she was driving and had a good charge?" And the one guy's like, "I'll smell the seats and check," just like completely unprompted. It's like, oh yeah, this is still a thing. As soon as he raised his hand, I was like, he is going to say something, and he did. It's like, wow, okay, this is still going. And this guy wasn't like 70 either; he's younger than me. So it's like, yeah, it's still with us.
Then you should know better. I like the one where it's
Not the people that work where I do. It's not a where I work is not a place of like progressive thinking.
No. But it was somebody interviewing flat earthers. And it's like, oh, the Earth's flat, right? And it's like, yeah. Then she's like, yeah, but I think it's a tetrahedron, so it's flat on all sides, but it's a three-dimensional object. And it's like, and she was trolling them. But they're like, oh yeah, maybe. It's like, oh yeah, these people are fucking stupid. Or maybe they're all hired actors. I don't know.
I always thought that was like, I never thought anyone was serious about that for a long time. It's like, oh, this is like the ultimate like anti-meme. Like this is just like, well, we're all going to say this. We believe this preposterous thing, and we're going to get passionate about it. But really, it's like it's just a game. But now I'm starting to think, no, I think this might be. But then you follow that to its conclusion. It always leads to God.
Yeah.
So it's like first, it's a testament of faith. You believe the Earth is flat. Then when you bring God into it, like, well, science can't argue with God. It's like, oh, okay, you got us. You got everyone else. You beat a guy with like 170 IQ with that right there, didn't you?
And that's why
how powerful you are. You're a wizard now.
And that's why all GameStops will eventually be converted into churches.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, we gone too far. We have to take it to its inevitable conclusion.
Yep. Then they won't have to pay taxes. Get huge. And before you know it, there'll be a 12-year-old girl in a wedding dress that's like, look, I told you where I was going to go.
What does this have to do with video games? God. Okay.
Because the sacred texts, as interpreted by me, God's messenger, say this. It's like, all right, good. Well, that's enough proof for me. Where's my tax shelter?
We don't like the word proof.
Yeah. Proof is such an ugly sounding word. And
it's so definitive.
And it puts a burden on others. It's like we want everyone just to be happy.
See, we think thinking is a fluid as a fluid object.
Reality is fluid. Just like fluid dynamics.
Well, speaking of computational fluid dynamics,
Yeah,
F1 has a new.
We are both deeply enamored in.
Well, it's that's how the F1 does. So they have two things: you have wind tunnels, and you have computational fluid dynamics,
Okay.
which essentially is a computer wind tunnel. It's less expensive, and they also cannot do unlimited They can't do it. That's also regulated in F1. You can't do unlimited computational fluid dynamics, which is kind of weird. It's like, you
How
telling
are
me
you
I can't run a
enforcing-
simulation? I don't know.
It's like a wind tunnel is a structure. You can time how long people are in there. Okay,
They have a-
let's assume that's governed. All right.
But they do. They're working on a new wind tunnel, and I'm not sure if everyone's going to use it or if it's just going to be Red Bull and Austin Martin, which is a weird pairing. But it's fascinating. I watched a YouTube video on it, and they're using like an old train tunnel in England,
Okay.
and it's not a wind tunnel like the way you think of it, where it's like they throw wind around a circuit. It's just a long tunnel that doesn't have wind, because it's a tunnel. Wind's not coming in, and you just drive the car as fast as you fucking can down the tunnel.
Oh,
and then
like,
there's
what, the cameras in there. That
Yeah.
take, like, 3,000 pictures a second or something. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's a turntable at the end because they can't turn around, and so it turns around for them and vroom all the way back.
Better time that stop good. He's off the turntable.
Yeah, that was like, oh, that sounds fascinating because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to operate these like giant wind turbines. You just drive the car and you just
They're essentially jet engines.
yeah. And like, so basically all they have to work on is like the irrigation stuff, and they just have to like build the rest of the tunnel, but they have like a quarter of it done. It's like, oh, that's wild. But it's not a new idea because Chip Ganassi Racing already does this.
Oh, okay.
It's something in 2008. There was like an old train tunnel that then became a part of the highway, the
Okay.
train tunnel, and then they diverted the highway somewhere else. So then this like train tunnel that turned into a highway was then abandoned, and then Chip Ganassi Racing like said they call it like Area 51 because like it's all secreted stuff, and like they just but you like because it's in the tunnel, I guess like how it works in the forest that they're working on, like you could just hear like NASCARs and all this other shit blaring through the forest,
Probably
like just
freaking
echoing
people out.
across the forest. Yeah. It's like, what the
Where's
fuck
the
is going?
racetrack at?
Yeah, it's in a secret tunnel. So yeah, that's their wind tunnel. So it's just a
Huh.
old train tunnel that got converted into a highway, and then that got abandoned. And they just took it over and fixed it up and drive cars really fast down it. So
It's amazing.
um,
Yeah, digital photography really changed everything in a lot of ways.
yeah, I'm not sure like what sensors they're using, but yeah, I'm not sure because I don't know how they're gonna do the thing where like in a wind tunnel where you can put like colored air in and like literally see like how the wind goes over it, but like maybe it's like all you need is an infrared camera, you can see that shit. I don't know.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't
And then-
sound. It's not like you're standing next to a V1 rocket while it's running either. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's gotta be. You gotta have earplugs. That's gotta sound awful.
oh,
in
even the
there.
guys in the control room are wearing, like, everywhere for jackhammers.
So they unveiled the 2022 car. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
I saw the notes and I was like, I'll let him describe it to me.
I don't know if I can describe it well. It's neat looking because it looks futuristic. The front wing is kind of like shaped in an arrow, which is kind of and the front wing's also fucking huge. And then there's like these little like, oh, what do they call it? There's like these little outcroppings that come up and go over the tires. They don't cover the tires completely, but they're just a little bit over the tire, and it's to like make the air less turbulent as it comes off the tire.
Okay.
They have bigger rims, so they're 80-inch tires, which I saw also a YouTube video describing how interesting that's going to be
Yeah.
because it adds a lot of weight to the car and not all the weight you think it is. Because like, okay, so what's the hardest thing to do is like you have this thing that weighs more the furthest away from your car, and you have to use your engine to rotate it, and now you're making that heavier, so now you're slowing the cars down. But the other thing you're talking about is like with the bigger tires they have now, with the the tire itself acts as a suspension system. So if you get these low profile tires, then they add less suspension to the car. So now they're gonna have to beef up the suspension because of the lower profile tires, and they're adding more weight to the car because of the suspension as well. I think they said they're going to be adding 40 kilograms to the weight of the car.
That's a lot for
Yeah.
Formula One. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah,
These look like earlier Formula One cars with just bigger tires.
yeah.
They kind of remind me of like 70s, 80s Formula One cars with huge tires.
Yeah,
They got the long snout
yeah.
and the fans or the wings and the tips in the front. Yeah, it looks like an old school Formula One car with huge tires.
The F2 currently uses the tires that they're going to be using next year. So that's if you've ever seen F2 cars, they have the big tires.
Okay.
And some I like how it kind of looks futuristic, but also like sometimes like at the wrong angle, the car looks like a toy and it's kind of ridiculous. But I don't know, it's still cool looking.
Yeah. Looks really weird with its tires off.
It's got a really weird like rear wing, which is kind of like it's just shaped weird. It's hard to describe. It's very kind of alien how it's shaped.
Well, it's got a split foil on it.
What's a split foil?
Because it's not just one dedicated wing surface. There's like
yeah.
fins. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they got the Venturi channels underneath, and it's like, so it's much more simplified because of that, it'll be way less expensive. So that's one of the reasons they're doing this new design, is to keep costs down.
Yeah, because they're having a spending cap now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because they have the engine freeze, that's just going to decrease costs even more. But the racing should be way better. Their computational fluid dynamic tests, like, it seems to be across the board, not just at the FIA's own test, but like what the other, because they're building the other teams are building this car now, and it's also kind of fun to hear people talk about it and the whispers, because this car, it's not a spec series, so this car that the FIA put out is not the car that everyone's going to have. It's just like the FIA's interpretation of what their own rules of what the car might be.
Okay.
And like you hear some whispers of people like, huh, that's cute. That's absolutely not the car we're building.
Yeah, I always love that. Like weird. Now these will be utilizing ground effect.
Yes.
Okay, so that explains because I saw a picture of the underneath of it too, and they're like, oh, okay, that's definitely.
Because like one of the things, so like they're explaining it, it's like with the current F1 cars, if you're 20 meters away from your opponent, your downforce is reduced by like 25%.
Okay.
And
oh wow, I didn't know it was that far.
And then if you're 10 meters away, your downforce is reduced by 46%.
Jesus.
So you basically can't race behind somebody.
Yeah.
But with these cars, if you're at 20 meters away, your downforce is only reduced by 8%. And if you're 10, it's only reduced by 14%. So that is exceedingly different.
That's a whole different animal. You're cutting that in half.
So they're hoping that this will be able to encourage wheel-to-wheel racing. So it's not just, these weird overtakes where it's just like, well, the guy just has a better engine, and then he overtakes him on a straight, and then like that's it. Open DRS, and here you might get like overtakes in the corner and maybe unusual ways that you've never seen before. So hoping to that.
Drifting around the corner. Well, that would actually slow you down quite a bit.
But yeah, but these cars, because they're heavier, they're going to be slower, and also they'll have effectively less total downforce. But because won't be losing downforce racing each other, that hopefully the racing will be better. That's kind of like why they built this car in the first place. So that's what it's designed to do, is encourage racing.
Oh, good.
So
It's been a while.
And this car was supposed to come out, this year, but COVID moved it back. So
Yeah.
So yeah, we had the format change this week. So we had qualifying on Friday, where Lewis Hamilton took pole.
Okay.
George Russell got in a Q3 again, so that was cool for in front of his home crowd. And then I think Max Verstappen was second. And then today we had the sprint qualifying race,
Okay.
which is a 100-kilometer race, no tire changes. It's just you just go out there and you race. And it was kind of Max got a better start, so now and he ended up winning this sprint race, which gives him pole position for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot like. Okay, so the top three, it's like the most. It's Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and Valtteri Bottas. That's your 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Which is the most common pole ever. Well, it's technically not a pole, but they get points. So Max got 3 points, Lewis got 2, and Bottas got 1 point for that. And then there's no points except for the top 3.
Okay. This is the one at Silverstone tomorrow?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
British Grand Prix, and they have crowds.
Yes.
And then, so then they had sprint qualifying today. Yeah, I'm talking about currently. Never mind. So like, the big change was like Fernando Alonso made up 4 places, so that was really good for him. Also, Kimi Räikkönen made up 4 places. I think Daniel Ricciardo made up 3. So a lot of the veteran drivers, this worked out very well for them, except for Sergio Perez, who had a really awful spin out. And it looked like the camera angle made it look worse than it was, because he basically like flew off the track, started spinning, and then there was a wall that like blocked the view. And it's like, the way it looked like is like, did that dude just like barrel into a wall at 200 miles an hour? But no, he didn't. But it's just the wall cut off the camera angle. So,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, so his car is fucked, and they're gonna have to repair it. And because of that, he'll be starting from the pit lane tomorrow. So,
Oh, wow.
so, but that'll be the second time this year. So that's not unusual for him. But that was kind of the worst thing to happen to somebody. Carlos Sainz got spun by George Russell, and so he made up some places, but he came back to I think 11th. And then George Russell's getting a penalty, a 3-grid place penalty for spinning him. So George Russell was going to be starting in 8th, and now he'll be starting 11th, which is where he usually is at anyway. So, or 11th or 12th, I can't remember. Esteban Ocon made up 3 places, so really good for Alpine. Yeah, I think they said 16 drivers changed position.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So-
That's a lot of shit.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost like what this is it's like they started a race, and then they red flagged the race, and then we're going to start the race again tomorrow with the current order. That's just kind of how this works. So it's like a planned safety car almost. And but see what happens tomorrow. But it's usually the British Grand Prix is a good race, even though it's a pretty flat track. It's just the layout of it and the really fast corners and the straights, because this is built on an airfield, like one of those old RAF airfields where it had like the 3 runways that like make a triangle. You ever seen those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's what this track is built on. Is an old Air Force base. I'm not sure if like the runways, if any of the straights are actually like any of the like old runways or not, but. And then
To me, it looks like a pretty conventional racetrack. So.
yeah. And it's funny, this is like sort of the home of Aston Martin, because their factory is like literally like at one of the, it's basically like at one of the corners. It's like, oh, there's the Aston Martin factory.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
But also there's like, I don't know, like there's like 3 other teams that call that place home too. There's like a Red Bull like headquarters is around there. Haas's headquarters is around there. But yeah, like the sprint qualifying race didn't really work out for a lot of the rookies. I think Yuki Tsunoda, like he came in the exact same place. Both the
What about Mazepin? He ever move up?
No,
Darn.
he I believe he hit Schumacher and spun himself out. So
Okay. All right.
so yeah, it seemed like so one of the things I guess the way so they have free practice 1. They usually use free practices to set up their car for the weekend. But here's the weird twist: once you set up your car for after free practice 1, and then, like, okay, once they're done with Friday qualifying, they basically can't do anything to their car. It's this thing called Parc Ferme,
Okay.
where it's basically like your car is under investigation. Nothing can change. If it does, rules will be put upon you. And so, but then on Saturday they have free practice 2, but I don't know why, because they can't change anything on the car except for, like, I guess they can adjust the wing, but it's like they can't change the wing, they can't change engine parts, they can't do anything to the car. So I guess they just test the fuel loads. Like, that's what they do in free practice 2. Fuel loads and tires. That's pretty much all they can do in free practice 2. And then they have sprint qualifying. And so, like, for the rookie drivers, usually you have 3 free practices, and you have, like, the whole weekend to try to work out your car. Whereas with the more experienced drivers, like, they've done this track before, they kind of know what's going on. So that's why this format, like, works out to their advantage, because they don't have to, like, be fucking around with the car too much. They just kind of know. So it might be why the younger drivers didn't do so.
Huh. Okay.
What else they have? Oh yeah, Lando Norris got mugged at Wembley Stadium
Nice.
because they had the European Cup, and England was in the finals with Italy, and Italy won. And I'm not sure if that contest was at Wembley Stadium or if just one of these were at Wembley Stadium, but Lando Norris was there in attendance, and somebody mugged him and stole his watch, which is worth like $40,000 or something.
Well, don't wear a watch that costs $40,000.
Yeah.
There's a way to avoid that.
Well, it was a gift, and it was a unique McLaren watch from one of their, I don't know, like Richard Mille or whatever, one of these weird boutique watchmakers that sponsor F1. That's
so
probably,
that'll put it up,
yeah,
or it won't.
yeah.
Or it'll
And
be on some guy's desk.
And I didn't get the full story on it. Like, I don't know if it's like a strong arm mugging or if he got pickpocketed, but it seemed to affect him in some way because the people keep saying that, like, he hasn't been sleeping well after the incident. So that seems more like somebody, like, got in his face and, like, give me the watch or you're dead or some shit. But I don't know. It's pure speculation. So
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I heard about that World Cup thing where it's like they said everyone in England went on Twitter and typed the N-word in or something. it was like
yeah, there's
crazy.
there's prominent black players on the England team. I think 3, and when they lost, yeah, they just they
Was that crew or was that like?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of racist shit after that.
Oh, okay. I thought I didn't know if that was like being hyped or if that. Like,
no, I mean Lewis Hamilton.
Like Boris Johnson got on TV and was like,
well, Lewis Hamilton had to go back out there and be like, "Hey, black people shouldn't be only valued if they win something. Like, they're people, you fucking assholes."
not to us. Oh. They should be grateful to live in Britain and win our soccer game.
But I bet there's also like these other crazy statistics where it's like, it's about like men beating their wives, and it's like if there's a big game on, there's a 28% chance that some guy's gonna beat his wife in England.
Wow, really? Okay.
And if they lose, it's 32%.
Well, at least it's not like 80. Like the Queen's not coming out to give an address with like her husband's dead, but you know. Wow, I did not know. Well, yeah, there's crazy like Super Bowl stats like that too.
Yeah.
See, I don't get passionate about sports because I don't want to hit my wife. Right, honey? But yeah, I heard that something like that. I was like, I didn't follow up on it, but I was like, that sounds about right. then the people on the right were like, it was all bots. I was like, no. Speaking of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, an old conspiracy has reared its head again. Something I haven't heard in a while. This is moving around some of the weird places I go to read weird stuff. Of course, you're going to find weird stuff. The General Patton conspiracy theory. Have you ever heard that one?
No.
It was big in the 70s. It didn't really last the test of time like JFK or something, but Patton, basically his car, his transport vehicle, or his Cadillac limousine that was just painted drab gray with 4 stars on it, got hit by an Army delivery truck, and he died as a result. Basically, it severed his spine, and they took him to the hospital, and he died. Like, they said he was getting better, and then all of a sudden he died. So I don't know if he ever became conscious or anything. Now that's how Patton died. And Patton was a guy of like, you either loved him or hated him. He said a lot of crazy stuff. He was one of those guys. He was like a brilliant general, but also kind of not a nice person. I mean, we did a thing about Patton on this show years ago, and I talked about him. Like, he would say wonderful things about the Russians and our other allies while the war was going on. He had strong opinions, and so he basically got bounced around from place to place to place, and he was very popular with the public. He was kind of one of those like generals during war that has this celebrity status. So they didn't want to just kick him out of Europe because he did help him win a lot of the battles. So they put him on this, kind of basically was given an army with no men in it. It's like, yeah, you command the 11th Army in Belgium or something. It's like, there's no people in that. But it's like, so yeah, Patton's still over here. He's still leading us to victory or whatever. This was after the war was over, too. But so he got in a car accident, and he was killed as a result. Not died at the scene, but died later in the hospital. Now, the 2 popular conspiracy theories were the other generals, and people didn't like him because, like, Roosevelt thought he was great. Truman met him one time and was like, I'm not dealing with this asshole. So it was always a mixed bag with him and who liked him and who didn't. But then these conspiracy theories started going around. It's like they killed Patton because he was speaking too much truth. It's amazing how it's the same shit now as then, only now we're doing it with computers and stuff versus like typing out weird missives and mailing them off to the paper to be published. But this has resurfaced again as to like kind of a broader conspiracy about, because I don't know if you heard, like, some generals or some people wrote a book this week. It came out that like they didn't trust Trump, they didn't trust him with the nuclear codes. They they were like, we might have to do a coup or something. Supposedly it's all this inside the box stuff that's like, oh, these generals said this. Oh, really? Which ones? Some of them they said some of the ones they named said they didn't trust Trump, and they called these guys and asked them, and they're like, yeah, we didn't. But some of the crazier stuff it wasn't attributed, so it's dramatic. So that has ridden to the
it's all Mattis.
Yeah, well, it's come back to this thing about how there's, in the public mind, there's good generals and bad generals, and they kill the ones that speak truth. And then all this Patton stuff came into it, like, look, see how they killed Patton? And I was like, killed Patton? Wait a minute. They made a movie about this. It was called Brass Target. It's a terrible movie. Oh. I tried to watch it. It's got Max von Sydow in it, but it's almost like he's in one of his earlier films. He's acting so strange because it's about a heist to steal money from the Nazis after the war, and killing Patton is thrown into it. Huh. Because they made a gun that like fired a rock at high velocity, but he had to stand next to him, and so it looked like some kind of injury, and it wasn't a good movie. But it's nice to see like they're just, now it's become, no one's heard of this conspiracy theory except weirdos that research conspiracy theories, to now it's conventional wisdom that Patton was killed by a cabal involving Eisenhower, Stalin, and whoever else you want to throw into it. It's like
all of his enemies came together.
The NKVD, what was the precursor to the Donovan's group? The precursor to the CIA, the Office of Special Services, the OSS, was involved in the assassination. There's a whole cast of characters that might have been involved in this. And my thing was, I'd heard this conspiracy theory before because I'm one of those weird people that just reads books about these things. And but now it's like, what struck me is this went from a forgotten thing to now accepted fact. You know, they killed Patton, don't you know? They're going to kill off the generals that were pro-Trump. It's like it's starting to mutate into that, and it's like no generals have been killed yet. We're not actively in a war. They're going to country clubs and going to arms dealers and working their magic. That's what the American generals are doing right now. So, but yeah, it's funny how they just try to weave this stuff all together. But that was the statement that struck me. It's like, yeah, some of these guys are going to go down that were for Trump, like Patton did. Like, what do you mean, like Patton did? He died in a car accident. No, they killed him. They killed him. Truman, Eisenhower, Stalin, the ghost of Hitler, they all killed him, huh?
Not to compete with your conspiracy theory, but there was a conspiracy theory I learned recently that I didn't even know was a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So do you know POWMIA?
POWMIA?
Yes.
The veterans group? Yeah.
Yes. Did you know that's basically a conspiracy theory?
I know a lot of people didn't want to say it like that, but I know if you dig into the group, it like gets pretty rangy.
Yeah, well, essentially, was because when you hear it's like
refight the Vietnam War.
Yeah, well, essentially, it's like oh, prisoners of war missing in action. This is like a veteran support group. It's like okay, that's what it is. But the whole but there are no prisoners of war currently. But to them, like what their conspiracy theory is, like when Nixon got out of Vietnam, is like he got out too fast and they just abandoned all these prisoners of war in Vietnam, and there's these people that were just left to be suffered, and like maybe they're still alive today, like we don't know, and like that's what that whole organization is built around.
I know I've never seen it, heard it put that directly, but I know like I've heard is like if you get into the upper echelons of like, because somebody said once, it's like the POW groups are like they're the third tier on the trip to the top of the Illuminati or something. And it's like what? And it's like, yeah, there was maybe a handful of people left, but not in the 1980s when these guys came to prominence. And yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with that, but yeah.
But yeah, I always thought it was just a veteran support group. I didn't know it was built on conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to gather around something, you know.
There's a lot of things that are built around. I mean, do you know why they say that the Jews control the bank and all the money? You know what the origin of that was? What that really goes back to?
I think you've said this before, but go ahead and say it again because I definitely can't remember.
I did this when I did my podcast on the protocols of the Elders of Zion and all that conspiracy stuff. Essentially, you know the laws that they have, like in Islam, they talk about this a lot against usury and charging interests on money. Okay, we have those same laws in Christianity. We just recently, in the last 200 years, have sort of papered over that. Like, no. But at one point, when people really wanted to be Christians in the old sense, like I'm talking the old school Christians, like from the Middle East, you farmed all your money activities to the Jews, because in the Jewish philosophy, there's no like epistemological rules that say you can't, charge interest for money, you can't lend money or whatever. So all the money was essentially controlled by them, and that became but not through conspiracy or some kind of
power grab. It was like it was a dogmatic loophole of convenience to get richer.
Yeah, and the Christians went along with it because it's like, we can't practice usury, we can't charge interest. So that became a multi-generational thing. So 500 years later, when Hitler comes along and he's like, look, the evidence is before you. And people are like, because they didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because if your family's been lending, borrowing, and trading money for 5,000 years, well, that's a family business. It's been, not 5,000 years, but for a long time.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how it's done. And this is these are the skills you learn. And so then it comes along, guys like Hitler come along conveniently and point a finger and like, look who controls the banks. It's like, yeah, well, the Catholics and all those people gave it to them because they were trying to follow like an old kind of Christianity. But nobody knows about that anymore because there's plenty of white Christian people that own and run banks and charge you interest and everything. Nobody does that anymore. The only people that make a big deal about it are like Arabs. Like they have like Muslim home loans. You know how that works? They charge you the price of the home plus whatever potential interest you would have on whatever term of loan you agree on. So there's no early payout option. You just owe a lump sum, but daily compounded interest is not being charged. So if you let's say you get a loan for $100,000, it's a 20-year note, you get it at 4%. That's like $38,000 over the course of that 20-year note. Well, your home loan is now $138,000. So that's what you owe, but we're not charging you interest on that. That's for really conservative people. Most people like the early out option, and they'll go along with the usury. But it is a thing. It exists around here. I did not know that until I talked to people here. I was like, that's interesting. How does that work out? Not very popular. It's like much like when we decided that when early Christians decided that, it's like, oh, well, we can't do usury because we have the same laws. So we'll just let the Jews handle all the money. And then 500 years later, it became a huge liability when nutcases come around. Like, look what they're doing. It's like, well, no, they've always done this. This has always been their family business.
Follow the money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But people don't know that about history, so they just, they just assume it's like, well, it must be true. The evidence is before me. It's like, no, there's a reason that evidence is there, and it's not because it's some dark conspiracy. But that's conspiracies are fun. So. Everyone believes that.
Like the head of my computer science program, he is not a computer science major. Like, he didn't graduate from college with a computer science degree.
Okay.
He graduated from college with a music degree.
Interesting. This doesn't seem like it'd be connected in any way.
Because like in the 70s, when computer science was starting to like come up, they basically like, well, we don't know what to do with all these fucking music majors, but for some reason, music majors can understand computer science better than the average person.
Why? Because they can interpret sheet music and coding went right along.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe. But it's a weird thing. But yeah, there are a lot of people like in the 70s and 80s, like they converted over from music majors to computer science degrees for just like en masse.
Okay, that's weird.
And it makes no sense, but apparently there's a viable connection where it's like, well, you're not going to make any money with that fucking music degree, but here's the future. For some reason, you guys can understand this shit. So.
Go for it, dude. Hey, I'll tell you the best. I won't name the guy, but one of the best electrical engineers we had worked on airplanes in the Air Force in the Vietnam era. Did not go to college, but for some reason was a genius at electrical engineering, was hired in, became a tradesman, and then they're like, oh, this guy's so good, we'll just call him an electrical engineer and pay him accordingly. He retired a long time ago, but that guy was like, he could like look at just these diagrams and stuff like, no, you got to do this, do that, setting up a whole plant. And for some reason he was, he was an engineer. And if anyone wanted to make shit about, well, he never went to college, it's like, well, go prove him wrong then. Cool. Because he's been here since the 80s, and they say he's an engineer, so he's just an electrician. He's a fucking hell of an electrician if he is. They didn't move him up just because he had a cool beard. I mean, that's not what he did. Have a cool beard. He looked like one of the
ZZ Top.
No, it was more like the dwarves from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
He had one of those, like the long, thin ones, kind of. And he spoke really abruptly. But he was telling me about when they were turning they turned a bunch of F-4 Phantoms over to the south, the Vietnamese army in the south to fight when they were leaving. It's like, you can carry on the fight. And again, and they said, man, those guys, he's like, they were so happy to get in those planes. They just couldn't wait to fly. They'd take off at full fucking afterburner, never shut it off, run out of gas in 15 minutes. Sometimes they take off without any missiles on the wings, breathing loaded. They just want to fly. We're like, oh man, that guy wants to go up there and shoot someone down so bad, but the only way he's going to do is ram that plane. Oh. Because he had a scary Vietnam story, because he was like, he worked for the Air Force, and then his time was up, and then the people that made the F-4 were like, hey, how would you like to make a lot of money as a subcontractor? Cool. So he stayed in Vietnam as a subcontractor to help the South Vietnamese get their air. Well, then when the Americans left, it's like, "Oh, you don't work for the government. You don't have a boat out of here." So essentially, he was just like, they were just driving around the countryside, because here come the North Vietnamese, like in a wave. They were just driving around the countryside, like, they catch us, they're gonna kill us, or we're gonna be in some tiger cage. They found some guy with a fishing boat. It's like, hey, how far could you take us? But they had a lot of money for some reason, like a lot of their money. And he's like, I can't go very far. And so they showed him all this money, like, we'll give you this, get us the hell out of here. He said it was worth like $500 in America, but over there it was like, well, he didn't know what it was going to be worth because the communists were taking over. But so that guy went and filled up 2 extra things of gas and just drove this fishing boat like out. And those are coastal craft. He was just going straight out to sea. And then they found, I think it was the Thai Navy? Someone stopped them, and they're like, we're Americans. And it was like the Thai Navy. It's like, oh, we'll take you. And so they ended up in Thailand, and they were calling home like, can you send us money for a plane ticket? And it's, do you know what it costs to fly from Thailand to America? It's like, well, you left us in Vietnam, because they told us, hey, you guys aren't government employees. You're contractors now. Get fucked. And then what else? Where did he wind up after that? Oh, he went to a lot of weird places. South Africa, Israel, anywhere where they had F-4 Phantoms, like they needed him to do stuff to him. He had a wild life. He was married 7 times. That's kind of an interesting story.
Did the last one stick, or it just never work?
I think he was still married to I think the 7th one was the keeper.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to say his name out loud, but
Yeah.
he was an amazing guy to talk to for hours. You never got bored. You didn't talk a whole lot. Because like, what story do I have to compete with that? It's like, I used to steal cars. That's not interesting. So yeah, that was the people you meet that aren't qualified to do their job, but are more qualified to do their job for some reason. Well, a revolution is starting in Cuba again. I don't know if anyone's heard this week.
Tell me about it.
Well, there's some things going on in Cuba. First of all, the coronavirus wrecked tourism, which was the one thing they had in their economy. And then the government started cutting back on internet access, both in and out, because they didn't want people to see that, like, hey, they're not starving in other places. And the cost increase of everything. And remember, that country is 1,000% embargoed by the U.S. If you're caught giving them $1, you're not doing business with the U.S. anymore. So we have no bilateral relations with Cuba at all. They have no embassies here, nothing. It is a forbidden area for America, for Americans in America. It did open up a little bit, but Trump changed all that. Biden hasn't changed it back. Especially he's not going to change it back now. It's like, go, be killed. So yeah, people can't buy food. They can't buy, they can't afford anything there anymore because inflation's so bad. Because if you think inflation affects us, you see what it does in countries like that, where it's all based on tourism, and that whole golden goose has been dead for a year and a half. Like, yeah, it's just, things aren't going good. So they're having massive riots all over Cuba. Their government's being quiet about it, and our government is saying, don't get on boats and come to Florida. You will not be allowed to stay here. That's what we're saying. So, yeah, it's a mess down there right now. And then, of course, Haiti's president was assassinated last week, which was a weird... The public story, what we're getting is they caught the guys who did it, and it was some Haitian expat who's practicing medicine in Florida now, wants to be the new president, and he supposedly set this up. But these sound like the worst mercenary killers ever, because they hired these through an American company that hires mercenaries. So these guys, like, according to the story,
Blackwater, or they're known as Z.
I don't know what this group. Well, I think these guys are like, let's set these guys up because they're all Colombian mercenaries. They're not Americans. Because at first they said it was American mercenaries. It's like, no, it was an American company.
I mean, that Blackwater book, the Blackwater really liked to what do you call it? Like, they used a lot of Peruvian mercenary.
Yeah.
Because, like, they cost less, but they the job just as well. So it was like a weird workaround where they had mercenaries all over the world, not just American mercenaries.
Well, this was some American group that, like, they have a name and I can't remember what it is. It's not like Greywater or something, something
Yeah.
obvious. But it sounds like this group was set up and hired these Colombian mercenaries, and these guys got like instructions to go to a hotel and wait. And the story they're telling is they just showed up with a bunch of weapons and were waiting in a hotel, and then like the army of Haiti surrounded the hotel and said, "These are the killers," and they're saying they didn't do anything. And the group that hired them like disappeared off the face of the earth, CIA front. And so it's a really weird tale. And then this guy, some kind of doctor in Florida, I don't know if he's a doctor of medicine or a doctor of witchcraft, because in Florida it's all kind of the same thing. But yeah, it sounds like a very sordid tale that's short on details.
Yeah.
Because what I'm telling you now, I read a week ago, and I just read the same thing before I started talking about it. It's like, oh, we're not getting any new information. Okay. So this is one of those weird things we'll never talk about again. But yeah, so that's what's going on off the shores of Florida. Right? Two nations in crisis. And of course, the new president of Haiti immediately asked Joe Biden, it's like, you can send troops to our streets now to maintain order. And he was like, no, thank you. You ever heard of Afghanistan? We're just leaving now. Just imagine how fucked those guys would be. They just divert the plane to Haiti from Afghanistan. Yeah, put on some different colored uniforms. Your war is not yet over.
Put on Fortunate Son. We're going in.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, and by the way, the guy who made that announcement, son of Cuban refugees. The announcement about don't come to America, you can't stay here. Son of Cuban refugees. Like, oh wow, this is weird.
I got mine. You can't get yours.
I don't know what. Are we going to do Scarface?
Is there? Yeah. There's going to be a Scarface reboot. Unfortunately, starring Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah. We'll get another white guy to play a Cuban immigrant. What about Cuba Gooding Jr.? His first name's Cuba. That counts, right?
And Good's right in his name.
Yeah. That was such a great movie. I still love it when they just throw the guy out of the helicopter over Miami. It's like, that's completely insane. So it's like, oh, I didn't see that one coming. All based on true stories, too. The violent murder rate only went up like 500% in Miami once that boat thing started. That's not an exaggeration. A lot more had to do a lot more with drugs and a bunch of people around with no other jobs. It's like, well, we'll just do this drugs thing because it's that or work at McDonald's. So, and Tony Montana would not have been as enthralling a character as a crew chief at McDonald's. Say hello to my Whopper. Or Big Mac or whatever.
Special sauce included. Yeah, I still need to watch that Cocaine Cowboys documentary.
Oh, that's crazy.
And there's two of them, right? I mean, a second one.
Yeah, there's a second round. When the story about we have so much money, we just buried it in our yard is like, oh, it can't get any crazier than that. Oh, yeah, it can. How much for one of those airplanes? He just hands him a suitcase full of money. It's yours. Wow. I think it was like a $700,000 aircraft at that time, but because he had a suitcase full of money, the guy just like took the money and just signed it over. Like, here you go, and he drove off. I don't think that money went to the Bombardier Aircraft Corporation for some reason. Yeah, I love those shows. It's like, see, there was a time of prosperity and hope in this country. Cocaine Cowboy.
A time when a young entrepreneur can make their way in the world and nothing can stop them.
We had Reagan. He supported the Contras and tons of cocaine being brought into this country by our own intelligence services. But that's a crazy conspiracy theory. Don't talk about that. And they fucking admitted it in Congress. Hearings like, Can't talk about that. Well, I watched a movie this week.
Yeah, the first in our Criterion Collection Carnival.
Yes.
Which I'm not exactly sure if this has like a Criterion edition, but fuck it, it's in their thing. So we watched it.
If it's on there, we're watching it.
Because I remember like sometimes we had some a bit of a debate because when it was Filmstruck, they had a bunch of other stuff. When we watched that weird Italian sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But it didn't have a Criterion Collection, and you didn't know it did or not, but like, yeah, we watched it and talked about it anyways. But
Oh, yeah, the one. Yeah, I remember that one.
but yeah, they're currently Criterion Collection is doing a neo-noir thing, and so they have like a playlist, and this was on there, so I selected Cutter's Way.
One of the only movies on their list, American movie that I hadn't seen.
Huh.
Well, this was kind of fresh for me. I'd never seen this movie. I'd heard about it, but I never watched it.
Yeah, I've never even heard of this when I saw it, so I was like, oh, watch this.
Well, this movie stars Jeff Bridges, John Hurd.
Yeah, which I was immediately confused when I saw John Hurd. I immediately conflated it with John Hurt, and I was like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
this isn't the same person.
Wait a minute.
I don't. I'll let you continue. I don't know if you had something you wanted to start with.
Oh no, I was just saying this was this movie was it was released in '81, but it still kind of has the essence of a '70s movie.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the most cynical crime drama I've ever seen. It's like, oh, these people are awful, and they're it's like is this Leaving Las Vegas or what? Because everyone's drunk, smashed all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean like drunk. I mean like Kentucky mountains drunk. Like these people are wasted.
This is a very interesting movie for a conventional moviegoer. This is a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But I also thought this was a Nathan movie because it's very quiet and introspective, and at the end there's a lot of paranoia. So I thought this kind of fit in for you.
This kind of dovetails nicely with my life. So we got Jeff Bridges plays the title character Richard Bone. Because this book was called Cutter.
Well, no, Cutter's John Hurd.
Yeah, no, Jeff Bridges is Richard Bone.
Yeah, but you said the title character, which the title is Cutter's Way.
No, I said the title of the book that this based on.
Oh, okay.
Cutter and Bone.
Okay.
Which was the original title of the movie, but
yes,
company didn't like it because
there was a presidential turnaround at whatever who's doing this. And they didn't like the movie, and then they ended up giving it to like their United Artists wing, and it kind of became like an indie movie for them that they kind of shopped around and made it more successful than had they done a conventional release.
Yeah, this wouldn't have been a very popular movie.
No.
Standard audience. So yeah, we got Jeff Bridges, who's like a boat salesman.
Yeah, which you don't find out till like I don't know, like an hour in the movie because he's like, it's just a hopeless layabout that sleeps with old ladies.
Yeah, what's he doing exactly?
And it's like, oh, he's sleeping with the wives of the guys that buy boats. Okay,
because they're out on their other boats, screwing 18-year-old blondes.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets to absorb all that jealousy and hate. Well, because remember at the opening of the movie, like the first lady he was sleeping with, when they were wrapping it up, he was like, "So you're not interested in the boat, huh?" Yes, I didn't think so. This is still the same Jeff Bridges, even though he looks like he's 15 in this movie.
Yeah, it was like 2 years before Tron.
Yeah,
I guess this is the same year that he did. What was the big failure? Fuck, the guy did Deer Hunter.
Oh, Heaven's Gate?
Yeah, he was in Heaven's Gate the same year.
Well, that's a weird pickup. Yeah, his next movie after this was Tron. And then he was in a movie called Kiss Me Goodbye, and then he was in The Last Unicorn as a voice.
But The thing I found most surprising about this movie is like, so I only know John Hurt as like the dad in Home Alone and various other roles. I had no idea he was actually like a good and interesting actor.
Yes, he is. He didn't always get the best roles, but yeah, when he did.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic in this movie and so complicated and interesting. And I was like, what the fuck happened? And I was trying to imagine because like the rest of his career, he kind of plays just like dads and like middle manager shitheads. And I'm like, that must have been like he didn't have to like reinvent himself and destroy his psyche to do a role. He just like, yeah, I look like an Irish upper management guy.
He was the lead in Chud in 1984.
But yeah, holy shit, I had no idea this guy could do that.
Oh yeah, and that character, the Alex Cutter, was very memorable.
Yeah.
Because he was basically a Vietnam vet with his left arm and his left leg missing, or
Left arm, left leg, and left eye.
okay, yeah, that's right. Because he was wearing the he looked like Snake Plissken in the movie.
Have you heard of the book that this is based on at all, or does
I had
anything
not.
familiar? Okay.
No, he just stole the show. I mean,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it's like Jeff Bridges, and it's like, oh, this should be good, and like Jeff Bridges is drowned out by this guy who did not become a main star actor at all. He was just kind of a dude in movies. I don't know. Do you have any other movies that John Hurt did where he has something that even approaches this?
I'm trying to remember. He did a lot of movies for money.
Yeah.
But then he did like he was in a lot of like some serious movies too, like the one about the people organizing unions and the fruit pickers unions and stuff in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
I think it was called the Beanfield War or something. I mean, he wasn't the main character, but he was.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what other movies he was in where he really stole the. But yeah, he played dad a lot in a lot of different things, and he was in Cat People. Just a strange movie.
And he was in big.
Seemed to be more of a character actor.
Yeah.
Than but a very good one, and one who really put his heart and soul into this. Because the Alex Cutter dialogue is insane. Like when that guy's talking, it's like, "Hey, don't orgy with people that have a pet monkey. Those fuckers bite." You know, just like crazy off the wall. Like who even thinks of that?
And it has like these weird gear switches. Like, isn't there some line where he's like, "He killed my wife. Don't you think I'd be a little mad about that?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that one where where he crashes the car and then he just like goes in the house and kind of like works himself up and then like he talks to the police and he's a completely different person.
Oh no, he puts on his jacket from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he walks with an even more pronounced limp, and I think it's got some medals pinned on it. And he's throwing dialogue like, "Hey, look, I'm sorry about what happened."
He drinks the mouthwash.
Yeah, he drinks it. Just swallows that shit down. It's like, okay, I'm ready. And he's talking to the cop. He's like, "Look, I know you're just doing your job. You know, I know something about service." Like he's really subtly manipulative and crazy. And then and when the neighbor just wants to kill him, he like holds up his crutch. It's like, "You gonna beat up a cripple? What the hell are you?" And 2 minutes before he was pile driving he destroyed this guy's car. But yeah, that was like the whole reason you watched the movie.
Yeah.
It's like because of the John Hurt character, like what's he gonna say or do next? Because he's a guy just totally hell bent on self destruction.
Yeah, so the weird thing about this movie and like why it's weirdly and unconventional and interesting is that like the whole setup, the plot, essentially doesn't exist till about like an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. There's this idea, it's like, okay, this guy, there's a body that gets dropped off at a hotel. Or in a trash can, and you don't even see, and he like vaguely witnesses it, and he has to talk to the cops. Basically, like all this stuff in a normal like thriller where we would focus on the investigation and see how the parts are playing together. You don't get any of that. You just get these guys talking to each other about the other stuff that you never saw happen.
Yeah,
and so like the tension of the movie is like, oh no, are these guys gonna stop being friends because of this? But it's never as like, is there somebody lurking in the corners that might kill them because they know the truth? Like that doesn't happen for like an hour and 20 minutes in the movie. And even then it's like, well, I don't know if there's somebody lurking in the darkness or not.
Yeah.
Because it just does not focus on the investigation. It's all about these characters.
Yeah, I mean the main character is Richard Bone, the Jeff Bridges character, is in the paper with his picture named as a prime suspect in the murder of this 16-year-old girl that was thrown into a dumpster, and then they have these gory details about the autopsy said her mouth and hair was full of semen. It's like just like whoa, goddamn guys, this is dark. And then that girl's sister shows up like, I want to get the guys that did this, and it's like, but it kind of morphs into I just want to blackmail the rich guy. But we're going to give it to the police once the
lie they tell themselves is that they're not going to keep the money. It's like, no, you're going to keep the money.
And that's the Valerie Duran character who shows up, who
both the characters molest for some reason. And
Jeff Bridges didn't. The Alex Cutter did in the car.
Yeah.
But Jeff Bridges, like she grabbed his hand and put it on her bare breast.
Yeah.
Don't you want this? And
I like the thing that made me weird about that is like I have no idea what her age is supposed to be. I looked up like what she was at the time. She was 27 at the time, but I think she's supposed to be playing like 19 or 18. I don't know.
But then after they try to deliver the note, or Jeff Bridges does, it doesn't work out, and then her and Alex and Valerie go and they say they did deliver a note. Well, she just disappears from the movie. You don't see her again.
Yeah.
And then it's just these two guys running around. And that what they've done by trying to deliver that ransom note is drawn the attention of this guy, J.J. Cord, who owns an oil company in California. And everyone seems to work for them. That's one of their friends or whatever. Like the guy that that owned the boat business where he worked. Like it wasn't his boss directly, but it was like him and his friends all buy boats from you, so you better shut these guys up. There's all kinds of stuff like that.
And pretty much, and Cutter is the one kind of doing this investigation and stuff, and you have no idea like if any of his information is good. A lot of it's just kind of like his imagination. It's like, oh, this isn't real, and that's kind of where the tension is. It's just like, is this guy losing his mind? I mean, he's a Vietnam vet. He kind of already has his mind lost, and he has a weird relationship with his wife, or just like this loveless marriage that's kept together out of guilt.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's never and the story ends up like they break into a party that Cord's having. Like they're gonna everything they do is like Keystone Cops. It's like I'm gonna infiltrate the party and talk to him, and security gets onto him immediately at the party.
But yeah, at some point, like, because Cutter and Valerie go to L.A., or at least that's the thing that's given.
Yeah.
Because he's like, where's Cutter? He's like in L.A. But Bones sleeps with Cutter's wife.
Yes.
In like a very weird sex scene.
Yeah, very 70s sex scene. It's like, we're going to extend this like way longer than it needs to get the point.
Yeah, or she's like, they're having sex and she's crying, and I don't know if it's guilt or it's because he's called Bone. Does he have like an enormous dick that's like he's famous for? And it's like probably both. I have no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea.
It's like, there's like, and it's just like, it comes off as like a slow rape scene rather than a love scene. Like, it's very weird.
I fast clicked on that scene.
Yeah.
Okay, they're having sex. I get it. Thanks.
But then, like, the whole thing is like she wants him to stay, and then he gets up and leaves, and then basically like,
which is a theme with his character, is that he's walking again. He's walking away.
And then the next day, like, the house burns down, and like J.J. Cord is like, everything that follows him is being burnt down to the ground. It's like, well, obviously this is the work of J.J. Cord. And then Bone, who basically was like, I don't want to get involved with this. Like, he's like, maybe she killed herself. I don't know.
The way she was acting is very possible.
Yeah.
That's the thing about this movie. Like, you don't know, is this all happening in his mind?
Yeah.
You know, these people, I mean, the events that are happening are real, but it's like, is this, are we this is this distorted lens.
But
where
you're
we're-
never given enough information to
No.
draw an exact conclusion to any of
No.
this. Which is why like normal audiences would hate this movie. You're not given the information. You're given you have the information like usually like a lot of thrillers like the audience is given information that the characters don't have, and that's where the tension comes from. But like, in this movie, you
they'll show
also
you the
don't.
guy following them or something.
Yeah. No, not in this movie.
Nope. Which is it's like it leaves it wide open.
Yeah.
And then of course we have the final scene at the party where for Cutter's like steals a horse and is riding it through the party, and then crashes through a plate glass or a glass window where Bone and Cord are talking, because after Cord's security people beat the crap out of him, he's like, bring him in, let him talk. But then Cord doesn't come across like an evil guy. He comes across like a rich asshole.
Yeah.
But he's like, I think your friend.
Well, he's got like 4 lines in the movie, so you don't know.
But you'd think he was going to be like, yes, I'm going to tell you what I did, and then I'm going to, the bad guy scenes, like I'm going to put you under a laser.
I'm going to admit to the truth.
But he doesn't do that. He's like,
No.
I think your friend's paranoid because of his experiences in the war, because it was implied he was in World War II, and he's like, I know what that's like. I know what that does to people. So he almost comes across as like, you're really annoying to me, but I think your friend is paranoid and he's taking you with him on a journey. And then he basically jumps off a horse and comes into the office through the window.
And then Bones
dies.
immediately like, he did it. You're
Yeah.
right. He did it.
Because he dies, because Cutter dies from, I guess, being impaled on the glass. I'm not sure.
So here's the thing I was thinking about, because it seems absolutely unbelievable that he died from a plate glass window. Although, glass could get sever an artery. That totally can happen. I've seen that stuff happen. Well, not really in real life. I've
read about it.
Yeah. Or seen videos. But so early on when he takes the horse, they insert a gunshot noise. So I think maybe they imply that he doesn't just die from the plate glass window, he's also shot.
Okay, I forgot about that, but now that you mentioned it, it's like, okay, yeah. But then at the end of the movie...
But he has the gun in his hand, but he hasn't shot Cord with it, but it's still in his hand. So Bone picks up his hand and points the gun at Cord, and he's like, "Well, this will be a free kill because it'll be Cutter did it. This is what Cutter wants, and you're a really bad person." I mean, it cuts to black, but it's obvious that he kills the guy.
Yeah, I mean that's implied because it just chops to black. There's no further story, but it made me think back to an earlier line in the movie when they were driving in the limousine up to the house. Because he pulls out, he's got this nice like nickel-plated 45, and he's like, Cutter's like, "What are you doing with that?" And Alex is like, "It's not loaded," So it's like, was that the last lie that Alex told Bone? He thinks this gun's unloaded. Like, you don't know, because the gun goes off and it cuts to black. But it's like, oh, is this just part of this multi-level deception that this head games that guy plays with people throughout the whole movie? Like, I don't know. It's something to think about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this movie definitely captures a lot of paranoia. A lot of stuff about the Vietnam War in this, too.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you saw it on TV and then you hated America. And you saw a picture in Life magazine of a kid being burned alive next to her mother. And then you decided, I hate God. There's all kinds of dialogue like that about
Like, I can't remember the third one is like, "You're hungry." That the third one is. I can't remember what he says to make you hungry, but like it basically just means you don't care anymore. You've seen enough bad stuff that you're desensitized and it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, so this guy is like the classic like Vietnam psycho character. That almost became a trope in movies, and I don't know if it started with this particular role or something else. But he seemed to be like his performance became the archetype of a lot of characters.
Yeah. From
that, or people really like that. I don't know.
Yeah, real interesting movie. I hesitate to call it good because there's no way I can recommend this movie to people other than except for hey, look at this performance. It's amazing, right? It's like, this guy's awful. Like, I know. And he's funny. And
yeah, this movie was directed by Ivan Passer, who's from Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, I looked up a little bit. I don't know any of his other movies, but he seemed like
The
interesting.
one we would know is like, ever seen that Stalin movie that who played Stalin? It was really weird, but it actually worked. Oh, when Robert Duvall played Stalin. I think it got moved down to like a TV movie because it was so long.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of not a bad movie. He died last year, so
Huh.
the director did.
But what was it gonna- yeah, it's kind of interesting how like actually I forget the trivia, but it seemed like they picked him to direct this movie because they didn't even know who he was. Like, who's this guy? It's like, oh, let's have him direct.
Yeah.
Well, I think somebody saw one of his movies and like I think there's something here, but yeah, some of the trivia on this on Internet Movie Database at least is kind of weird because they include this like as a lineage of the paranoia movies, like we were talking about Parallax View and Capricorn One, and they say like this movie is like the tail end of those section of movies, and like I'm not sure, but like sure, but like there's not like a book that like puts that together. That's just somebody saying like, hey, this movie's similar to those movies. It's not necessarily like
Yeah, this movie was. I could see that. This movie is almost like a character study instead of a.
yeah.
It's just like this is what one guy can become, and he could drag all his friends down with him with his paranoid mind. It's like there's real bad stuff going on, but this guy's also like so rangy. It's like you can't really put any faith in this character. What I liked about this movie was the cynicism more than the paranoia. It's like these people are absolutely the most just heartless cynics you will ever see. Every character is from Jeff Bridges, John Hurt, to his girlfriend. It's like, yeah, these people are all cynical.
And oh man, like that weird parade in the
Yeah.
movie. Well, that's so fucking weird. I know like places actually do stuff like that, but that was just so weird in the movie. It's like, does this mean anything? Like, I have no idea. It's like, is that why they're here witnessing it? Because they don't care and they're just sitting there being cynical and drunk. Like, let's watch the parade. Everyone's here. Let's talk about the young girls twirling batons. It's like, oh Jesus.
Boy, they're maturing quickly nowadays, aren't they? It's like, wow. But then he had this whole diatribe before about how it's like all these people, because he was talking to like pointing to some Mexican guy or some American Indian. I'm not sure what it was. It's like, yeah, we just showed up and killed them all, and now we throw a parade for them. Like, yeah, you're great, welcome. You're part of the country now, even though you're dead. He had some. It was always a series of speeches, and then it jumped right into, man, they're growing up fast nowadays. It's like, oh boy, this guy can't. But he was always had like a liquor bottle in his hand too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
his brains were just scrambled.
Oh, I love that line where he's talking about like after he like sees his dead wife and like, do you want a drink? And it's like, I take my, what is the line? It's like, I take my tragedy straight.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ.
Want to go get a drink? You're like, of course this guy wants to get a drink. No, not now. Taking this one sober. Yeah, that was his line. Like, take tragedy straight.
Or sober, yeah, or something like that. Or the straight means sober at this time. I don't know.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Or he's saying the tragedy is like a whiskey in itself, and he takes it straight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just randomly picked this movie, and it is a hell of a performance and a weird movie. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no, what's the other trivia? Fuck, I forgot the trivia. Oh, well. Oh, I like one. There's like one bit of trivia. Apparently, the United Artists, because they're treating this more like a indie movie rather than a full-on release, they took it to the Houston Film Festival where it won every award.
Yeah.
I don't know what it went up against, but it won every award.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like like best screenplay, best improvisational line. See, that's what I wanted to know. Like, I couldn't find out. Like, did he improv or adds things to these lines, or is this just a straight script?
Yeah.
And what room full of alcoholic, angry men did they have writing this character? if he did indeed did not improvise.
That was another weird bit of trivia. Apparently, the screenwriter, like, he was so poor he had to shoplift the book to do an adaptation for it. It's like,
Nice.
that sounds cool. I have no idea if that's real.
Sounds anecdotal to me.
Yeah.
But could be true. I don't know. But yeah, Cutter's Way. It's like, you know, if you're feeling down, check it out. It'll lift your spirit.
Yeah, we may explore some of the other neo-noir stuff in there. There's a bunch of stuff we already done. Like, you got, like, Blowout, but, like,
Yeah.
I've never actually, like, sat down and watched Chinatown, like, all the way through. Like, I just know stuff about it, but that'd be one we could do. Like, I've probably seen more of the Two Jakes than I've seen Chinatown.
Yeah, I've
Which,
seen them both.
If you don't know, Two Jakes is the follow-up to Chinatown.
20-year sequel to Chinatown. Ever seen The Long Goodbye?
I believe
Robert
so.
Altman film. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know if we did that or not.
I don't think. Oh wait, no. Wait, the Altman one. What's the one with Bob Hoskins where he's
Oh,
the crime?
Long Good Sunday. or
Okay.
something?
I'm confused.
Long Good Friday. Yeah, that's a great movie. I think we've done that one though. Haven't
Yeah,
we?
we did that one. Yeah. There's a bunch of them where it's like, we can't do this one, we can't do it, and there's a bunch of like the ones on the list. There's like a few like blaxploitation thriller noirs, which I'm interested to maybe exploring, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
And the next one I picked is
The Michael Mann Manhunter's on here.
yeah.
That's a great one. I'm sure we've done that.
Yeah, we've done that before. Yeah, next one I think I picked Body Double just because it's a Brian De Palma movie and I've never seen that before. There's on this list there's Body Double and Body Heat, both I've never seen before, but I've heard like mentioned like in various film conversations hundreds of times.
Oh, they're good. They're great movies. They have some
Okay.
great scenes in them.
But yeah, I think for right now we'll probably be on the neo-noir kick for a while.
All right. Well, that sounds good. So tune in next week, folks, for Body Double. This week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.